Let's see, where is it? So the thing I was going to show is for when the WikiLeaks data came out, the Guardian very quickly had a map up of all of the what is it actually? I think it's all of the Iraqi deaths. So I think civilian casualties in Baghdad, which they had just immediately. And so I was going to show how we could make a map, and they used Google Fusion tables to do that. So they could just load in the data from WikiLeaks and put it up online very quickly. And had a pretty good looking map with small dots, not big dots. So I was going to show how we could do something very similar. What it looks like. It's not going to load. So what I'm going to use to do this is data from NYT, the organization I was talking about earlier. Oh no. So NYT is an organization based in Missouri that collects United States government data and makes it available to journalists with a small fee, but it's pretty cheap. And it's something to consider even in Argentina, because a lot of the government data is government activities in other countries. So the database that I pulled from NYT is government contracts with foreign agencies. So it's places, I basically pulled a list of everywhere last year, I think, where the United States had paid a country, or paid a company in Latin America to do a project for the US government. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at basically where in Latin America is the US spending money and how much, and for what. So it's something, sometimes if you have trouble getting information from your own government, you can sometimes get information from the United States government about the same thing, because they also collect that information. All right, so here is, come on, there we go. So here's what the Guardian did. They had a map of every Iraqi death all over Baghdad. And if you click on any of these dots, hopefully, you get a little bubble that shows you what basically happened there. So this one had 2 Iraqi forces killed and 3 wounded. And this was data that WikiLeaks provided and had the maps, so they could very quickly just kind of put this up there. So they put this in there, they redesigned the data, and they have it. We didn't do this because we didn't want to have all this stuff out there necessarily, but they had been okay, so the data is from, the IRI is taking a while to load up. You can download this data from IRI and play with it. I'm going to try to share this and see if you can actually download the same data, because then you might be able to follow along. Go to google.com/fusion tables to this URL, and I'm going to see if I can make it so you can search and download this data. Share. Oh, here we go. Oh, actually, sorry. See if you can get this entire URL. Can you see that? You should be able to get to that data if you go. Here, make it bigger. So, has anybody been able to get this? Maybe? So I downloaded the data from, you got it? So it does work. Okay. So I downloaded this data from NYT just as a comma delimited file, CSV, which any data in Excel or most databases you can get as a CSV pretty easily. And then you can import it into Fusion tables directly. Sorry for anybody who's still looking at this. Just doing file and new table, and it'll let you import it. And then what I have now is a list of this data. So I have who they gave money to, I have their address, and where they're from. So it's a pretty simple table. It's just what U.S. agency gave money to what company where. It's pretty basic. And what Google Fusion tables will let you do is I can visualize it, and I can look at it on a map. But I want to use the location. But it really didn't work. So I need to geocode it first. So much like when we had Yahoo pipes and you could map them, with Google, if you have a location, you can geocode it and get the location on a map, the latitude and longitude. Bam. And so now I have these maps. And I don't know why there's a few there's definitely some mistakes. So if we were going to do this to publish it, we'd have to look in the data and figure out. My guess is there's probably like a Panama City, Oregon or something, and so there's some things that are confused. But for the most part, it has things in Latin America. So we've got Mexico all the way down to wherever. And there are a lot in Panama and stuff. And this, I mean, uploading the data and doing the geocoding just takes a few minutes to do. And you can do many, many thousands of records and get it into here. And then what you can do is when you click on each of these points, you get the view of it, which you can customize. So I could customize the colors of the dots. So I actually did that earlier. So for each of these dots, so I can move this. Maybe not. So for each of these dots, I said color it by the amount of money that was given. So that if it's less than $1,000, make it red. Less than 5,000, make it yellow, purple. So now, even just looking at the map, you get information about where the money is distributed, who's getting a lot, who's getting a little. And you can configure what text shows up in the bubble. So the Guardian did a very complicated HTML in here that shows the table of what kinds of casualties. I just did a very simple one where I showed the agency, who was getting the money and how much. So just a very simple bubble, just to show that you can edit that and put whatever you want in there to customize it. So you can make a pretty sophisticated map without really any programming. It's some small HTML, but for the most part it does everything for you. And if you had the right kind of data, which we don't, you could also instead make a bar chart or an intensity map, which is like color things based on how much each of them gets. So it can color each of the countries based on who gets the most. I didn't do that here because it's not very interesting, but you could color each of the countries. You could do that. You could color countries based on something, or states, or whatever. You could do timelines. You could do a lot of stuff. It's similar to Google Charts, but in this case, very quickly.
That's still difficult to click on each plot.
It's
in Central America, it's either.
Up here? Yeah. Well, you can zoom in too, and then it's a little easier. Yeah, it's a little different. You can adjust the size of the dots, so you can make like the little clicking things that you see up there. But the very nice thing about this is you can export this data in two very useful ways. So you can either do it as KML, which you can import directly into Google Earth. So you can create a Google Earth view of this, which is fun. You can have it on your phone and other things. Or you can get an embeddable piece of code. So I can take this map and put it directly into a blog post or somewhere else on my page. Someone was asking about this yesterday with the Yahoo Maps. Much easier with the Fusion tables. So this is what the Guardian did, is they took this and just put it directly into their page. So it's basically a map that looks like this that they embedded, and you see you can make it much bigger or smaller directly in there. I don't know that we've used this yet at the time, but I mean, it's a very powerful thing to do. You can see they have far more points than we did. I had 2,000. I think they had 80 or 90,000, something like that you can do on your show on the map and have it online very, very quickly. So you can do this with timelines. You can do this with charts. I'm sorry to run through that very quickly, but hopefully you at least get the idea of what's possible with the Google tables.